Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
What if I told you that the questions that keep you up at night could be answered? What if I told you that if you feel like you're stuck at a crossroads and you don't know which way to go, that an answer is only a few moments away? What if you're just looking for some spiritual guidance? What if you just want self-improvement? Maybe you feel stuck and you'd like to get out of those routines. You want to bring joy and wonder and awe and magic back to your life. You're only one tarot reading away. Go to tarotheathen.com and get your reading from me, Lonnie Scott, an international award-winning tarot reader. Insight awaits. Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Weird Web Radio. I'm your host, Lonnie Scott. This isn't just any other episode. This is the Season 2 finale. Can you believe it's been 2 whole years since we've started? What an amazing journey this has been, and I'm already looking forward to Season 3. And I'm going to bring you all with me. So tell your friends, tell your family, and tell your familiars. Come out and join us. In fact, in this episode, we're going to be talking to Jason Miller, the Strategic Sorcerer himself. This is one of those interviews that I've been waiting for since the day I started. Jason has had an enormous influence on my spiritual and magical life, and I know I'm not alone. Jason's interest in the occult was sparked by a series of psychic experiences that he had when he was just 5 years old. He took up the practice of both high magic and hoodoo root working while he was still a teenager, and learning how ceremonial and folk magic can work together and complement each other. He's been involved with a number of orders and groups through the years, and he's always seeking that quintessence of the art. He's traveled to New Orleans to study hoodoo, Europe to study witchcraft and ceremonial magic. He's even been to Nepal to study Tantra. Jason is an initiated Tantrika in lineages from Tibet. He's an ordained Gnostic bishop and a member of the Chthonic Oranian Temple and the Sangreal Sodality. Jason's also the author of Protection and Reversal Magic, a Witch's Defense Manual, The Sorcerer's Secrets, Strategies and Practical Magic, The Financial Sorcery, Magical Strategies to Create Real and Lasting Wealth, the Strategic Sorcery Course, and of course the Strategic Sorcery blog. Jason is also the author of his newest book, The Elements of Spellcrafting, 21 Keys to Successful Sorcery. And of course, Jason lives with his wife at the New Jersey Shore, where he practices and teaches magic professionally. And you can check out his site and everything he offers at strategicsorcery.net. I can't say enough about how awesome Jason and his approaches to the occult are, so do not let me stand in your way. One more thing before we go, no matter where you're listening to this, you can go to weirdwebradio.com, click join the membership, and for only $5 a month, you get a lot of bonuses being a member of Weird Web Radio, and your support goes a long way to help this show keep going season after season. You can catch the show on iTunes, Spotify, and most mobile apps out there anywhere where you want to listen to your podcasts. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the show. Jason Miller, welcome to Weird Web Radio. It's an absolute honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here finally.
Yeah, you and I both. I don't know if anyone warned you ahead of time, but I like to ask my first questions with where you are now rather than where you've been. So what is one thing that you've come to believe after all these years that's true to be, or that you believe to be true about magic beyond skepticism and doubt?
Whoa, man. Magic works as an influence on whatever we aim it towards. And so it is always working when we do it. Now, whether that influence is enough to make what we want happen, that depends on a lot of things. But just like, if you ran up to a boulder and you started pushing it, you may not wind up moving the boulder, but you're still exerting force. So magic is a bit like that. And I think when people give it a chance, the fact that it works becomes undisputable after a series of successes, or at least enough successes that you can't look at it and say, oh, this is garbage. Yeah.
Well, with that said, calling magic more of an influence, and I agree. I've always thought of it sort of like increasing probability. But how does one recognize that they're getting that success if all it boils down to is an influence? What does success actually look like most of the time?
Well, it gets framed by what we ask for. I think I think the thing that maybe the cornerstone of why I started teaching and the cornerstone of the strategic sorcery philosophy is that, okay, let's all agree magic works, but let's stop using it for stupid stuff. So, magic, I have met people that, will do this incredibly complex ceremony, maybe, summoning a demon or something like that. And they'll just ask, for wealth, give me money. And then they'll find, a wallet. Whoop-de-doo. Congratulations. The magic worked. Yeah, your world is a little more magical. And that is something. But is that a lasting success? Is that a meaningful success? So for me, success is not just a matter of I put something out in the world with magic and it happened. Success for me really is this doing something that is improving my life, the lives of other people, enriching it in some way that is not just shits and giggles. That's what success means to me. So, the some of the early successes I had in magic, even generating paranormal experiences that are, beyond just an influence. Like, this is, wow, something inexplicable happened, something wizardly, something movie worthy that I can't reproduce on command happened. And that's great. It makes your world a little, a little crazier, a little more magical. It re-enchants it, as Gordon White would say. But in the end, did it really do anything worthwhile, long-lasting, or change the game in any meaningful way? So for me, the marker of success is what is better after this as opposed to before this. Like, can you say, things are different now?
Yeah, fair enough. There should be some sort of measurable effect to say, yes, it worked. You said, and we both laughed, these movie-worthy moments have actually happened. Could you describe one of your movie-worthy moments?
I it's funny. I was just asked about this the other day I was on a road trip with a friend, and he's not magical in any in any way. He's more or less a materialist atheist, and he was telling me about another friend of his that was talking to him about flying llamas or monks or something. And he said, I think she said this just to, see what I would do. And in turn, I think he was telling me that to try to get me to say, well, yes, monks fly all the time, because he knows obviously what I write and do for a living. But I just looked at him and I said, well, there are some things that I've seen that are beyond description. And in general, I don't talk about them to people that weren't there, because my rule is, if it's something that you shouldn't believe unless you saw it, what's the point in talking about it? So I have done operations where more than one light in the house has blown out at a time. I have done operations where someone else in the house that was not connected to the operation saw apparitions. I've been in places that were haunted where things have moved and all the typical things. And I have seen. I lived for a month with Kunzang Dorje, who is one of the great Tsalung masters in Nepal, and I saw him do. I'm not going to dishonor his memory by talking about specifics, but I saw him do some things that are physically impossible, that I still could not imagine how they got done. Freeze time, that kind of thing. And
wow,
it's something that people shouldn't believe. Even magicians shouldn't believe it because I say it. And it's one of those things. The miracles and the magic and the paranormal happens on occasion, usually not repeatable. Usually, if it was repeatable, then we'd all be on the news and there would be magical superheroes and stuff. And there's not. I haven't checked CNN today, but last I checked, there's not. And so these things happen, and I have been accused by people of taking the magic out of magic when I say things like, make a plan that would work without magic and then use magic to make sure it would work. People will say, well, that's not even magic. What, you're taking the miracle out. You're taking the paranormal out. And I'd be like, no, I'm saying don't rely on the miraculous. I'm not saying that you can't have a pile of thousands of dollars fall into your lap, or that some miraculous thing won't happen. I'm saying don't bank on it.
Sure.
So, the description of odd things, goodness, it's long. Apparitions that you can see with the naked eye and get seen by other people. Things that get heard. Results that are instantaneous within the hour, things like that.
In that description, you said people shouldn't believe it just because you said it. Now, after you've written the books that you've put out into the world and the courses that you teach, I'd say you've got a fair amount of people who are heavily influenced by your work. I count myself among them. Feeling that way, that people shouldn't believe it just because you said it, and with your growing success, does it make you more cautious about what you put out into the world?
It does a little bit. Yeah. It does a little bit. because one of the things about putting something in writing is that, especially in a book, is that if I later change my mind, that written record is still there. So people will go and pick that book up and say, Jason thinks X. Meanwhile, Jason hasn't actually thought X in 10 years. But, there it is in the book nonetheless. So I do get a little cautious. And I also know that there are a lot of people, especially with social media, who are just out there to argue for the sake of argument. And I don't worry about those people or cater to them. But, I do think about what I'm writing a little bit more like with a little bit more permanence.
Yeah, what's one belief you may have had 5 or 10 years ago that you no longer find useful or valuable?
Oh man, you know what? I can tell you something I wrote just a couple years ago on a blog post. It was when the big witches doing the curse against Trump thing started.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it was on a day, right? And I wrote this thing about it that was this is not, these are the reasons why this is not a very effective spell. And, there'll be a lot of people not really prepared for this. And public figures are very hard to influence anyway. And without any kind of firm link or anything, this is, might just trigger whatever guardians that they have, et cetera, et cetera. And I was very dour on it, even though I liked the general idea of it. But as time went on, I have changed my mind. I was, as the Fawn says, wrong. And because ultimately, even if the magic didn't do anything, it is still an enormous amount of people. It's an enormous comfort to people that are being marginalized to feel like they have some measure of action that they can take beyond a call. And, even though it's not a spell that I would have devised and doesn't have any good clear link or any way of dealing with guardians or anything like that, the sheer amount of people involved sort of, carries a weight with it. And so, yeah, that's something where if somebody goes back and reads that blog post, and then goes to earlier this week, and I posted a Jupiterian curse against bad governance. Should we ever run into a situation where there's bad governance? Heavens forbid. So people would be like, well, wait a minute, hold on. So that's one thing that comes to mind immediately. But, other things, chaos magic. I have been around the block and back on chaos magic. On constraining demons. I've been around the block and back on constraining demons. I have held positions where I early in my career, it was just sort of well, these are just spirits like any other spirits, and this is all imperialist Christian nonsense. And then it was actually the Holy Guardian Angel. It was nope, we got to do that. That's really important. And so, I said, well, give me. I didn't even prepare a tool to bind the demons by, and he said, I'll provide, and a tool showed up in my hands that day. A big 6-foot tall Egyptian wasp was given to me that day by a friend of mine. And the binding and constraining of spirits became important. And then I started to view it as unimportant again. And then I saw that it's important for different reasons. So I think for anyone, if you think the same way on everything that you did 10 years ago, you're not allowing yourself to grow. And one of the things that can happen to teachers is they feel like they're in teacher mode now and have to hold the line on everything. And I don't think that's the case.
I'd agree. It's funny about the Trump thing. I had a guest on my show several episodes back, Amanda Yates Garcia. She's a wonderful soul, and I had seen her on Fox News, of all places. She was brought on one of those shows. I can't think of the guy's name. Basically to berate the witch who was promoting the curse against Trump. And I talked to her about it, and I kind of had the same view that you did. That, but I was telling her you should work more at a local level. You can make a lot more impact at a local level. What all can they really do with all the checks and balances? And I'm learning like other people. Well, I don't think I was right. Not entirely anyway. Working local is certainly important, but I've also changed my opinion of what's being done in this whole trying to rein Trump in magically.
Yeah, it's a I think from the view of an individual sorcerer, it's a good, or even a small group, it's correct. But from a view of from a view where you've got thousands of people joining in, I think it's just fine.
Yeah. I've seen you right before, at the risk of asking you something you no longer believe, that local spirits, local places of power are an important part of your practice. I don't recall exactly where I saw you talk about this, but I know I've seen it. Let's imagine that you've moved somewhere new. You've gotten out of where you've always lived your whole life, and you need to connect with those places of power. How do you go about finding them?
Oh, man. Well, the first thing is start at home. The place of power that you need to be most concerned with is the land you're living on, whether you're renting or you own, but most especially if you own. You need to start with offerings. I have a ritual that I've put out in numerous places called the Spirit Feast, where you lay out offerings and you invite different categories of guests. So you invite the gods, the guardians of an area, then all the local spirits in an area, and then finally any spirits to whom you may owe a debt or who have some kind of issue with you, which can happen when we move into a place. And let's say your septic runoff is flooding what used to be a place of dryadic energy, and now is a place filled with human feces, or you drive to work every day across this thing that used to be an important power point and is now a major intersection. So the Spirit Feast is a way for you to kind of get right with all the local beings, develop a relationship with them, and then you can start integrating scrying and trance work and reaching out into those spirit feasts so that there's some communications. Just like as if you were meeting neighbors, you're sort of throwing a party. And then from there, you want to get into the local legends, the folklore of the area. You want to start investigating um, the places of spiritual import, paranormal import. So, I live on the Jersey Shore, but also right at the edge of the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and we've got the blue holes near us. These are pools of two different pools of weirdly blue water when all the water around it is orange from both the iron and the cedar. And these pools remain cold all year round. So they get, the local legends say that there's an entrance to hell at the bottom of the pool and that the Jersey Devil rises from them. There are other power spots where, in a forest of pygmy pines, these really tiny pine trees that only their seed pods only open during forest fires. It needs to be like 400 and something degrees for the trees to spread. And this too is an area where the Jersey Devil likes to hang out. Then there are places associated with historical figures, like in the Pine Barrens, Peggy Clevenger, the Witch of the Pines, Dr. Sills, who was a black doctor who lived in the Barrens and treated people and was also rumored to be a root worker. I lived in Philadelphia for a time. You've got the Cave of Kelpius. You've got the Devil's Pool. You've got the Freemasonic Lodge. And for that matter, you've got, the historical graves of Ben Franklin and Charles Godfrey Leland, Aradia and so on. You've got all of that. At the moment, I'm summering in Vermont, and there are places here. The statue of Black Agnes at a cemetery just outside of Montpelier, and you've got Memphramagog, which, how's that for a Lovecraftian name for a lake?
No kidding.
The monster Memphre from Memphramagog, and yeah, so and then of course there's just, you go to the top of a mountain and you commune with the spirits there, the spirit of that mountain or that valley or that lake. I am less when it comes to sorcery. I like to say all sorcery is local, and so it really does. Some of the best work comes down to those spirits that are not named, that are not connected with famous places, that might be inhabiting a small patch of woods just outside your house.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. Exploring the local area and knowing your own local lore can make a huge impact on your sorcery, especially with your offerings, creating and improving relationships. You write a lot about offerings being a part of practice, and you've also written a lot about meditation being a part of practice. It seems every book you put forth, those two are going to be a part of the curriculum. What is it about meditation that makes it so important to you?
Oh, man. You hit me at just the right time. I have restructured my Take Back Your Mind meditation course to make it just tighter and better for people that are not, going on retreat or pretending to be monks or something like that. Meditation is something that magicians hate to do and witches hate to do, but it makes everything better. So the reason that it makes everything better is because we don't know anything other than through our own mind. Everything that we see, feel, touch, taste, smell gets filtered through our mind. So in a way, everything is an internal experience. everything that happens to us, we only know it through our own consciousness. So to have a grasp on your own consciousness is about the most fundamental thing that one can think of. But we don't. And any, people that think we do can just sit for a moment and watch the second hand of a clock go around. For 1 minute, think of absolutely nothing else but watching that second hand. And probably about 20% of the people listening to this will come out of that exercise and be like, well, that was no big deal. In fact, during the whole thing, I was just thinking about how good I am at this, and my concentration is so great. And of course, they're not. They're thinking of all these other things. But to be able to have a grasp on one's own mind, to know one's own thoughts, how they arise, how they dissipate, how to detach from the thoughts that arise, is key. And then eventually, when we get through that stage, to open up these moments of pure clarity where we're not attached to the thoughts that are racing in our mind, and we can come to a deeper way of knowing. And then that gets deeper still and deeper still and deeper still. And it is just, it makes everything better in life to have a grasp on one's own mind. In magic, doubly important, because the things we deal with are subtle. Therefore, we need to have an even greater grasp on our own mind. It's true that meditation will help clear the mind from thoughts, giving space for spirits or visions to manifest. But what's even more important than that is recognizing when that spirit or vision is not really a spirit or a vision, is just our own fantasy taking shape. And through meditation, you get a real feel for that. In fact, you get a feel for what I call the perception-projection ratio. How much of what we're experiencing is sparked by that ritual that we just did, and how much of it is our mind kind of taking that and running. And because almost every experience we have is some mixture of perception and projection. So that's why meditation is so important. It solves 100 problems with just one practice. So when people tell me, well, I don't meditate, but I do this, and I do Tai Chi, and I sing songs to angels, and all these other things, none of those, they may bring you to a place of calm, they may bring you to a place of clarity, but none of them take the mind itself and turn it against itself or turn it on itself. And the example I always use is, a meditator can be getting screamed at, and the fight or flight response that comes up, the meditator will recognize it and has trained in turning the mind on itself and can just let go. So if your boss is screaming at you, you can't be like, hold on, I just got to throw out a LBRP here so I can calm down, or hang on a minute, I got to go ice skating so I can react normally. No, meditation turns the mind on itself. It is the thing itself. So it's different than all those things that people say, well, I don't need to meditate because I take a bath and listen to Enya. And it gets me there, quote unquote. It doesn't, if you're going there, that's not meditation. And that's what people hate about it. It is the anti-magic. Magicians and witches want to stand up and dance and trace signs in the air, and meditation says, sit down and shut the hell up. And we want to have visions. We want spirits to speak to us. We want, to close our eyes and be transported off to phantasmagoric wonderland. And meditation says, if the Buddha appears to you, kill him. If your patron goddess comes down and says, quick, come with me on the wonderful vision fairy quest, you say, no, I'm meditating. So, that's why meditation is good, and that's why people hate it.
That summed it up beautifully. It's a form of discernment almost. Now, with meditation and offerings being such an important part of your practice and something that is always part of your writing, what is one more essential skill you think magic users should be using?
Ooh, wow. I think the next big one that almost no one does is inner heat practice. And so I guess in a broader sense, I could say energetic practices, but really specifically inner heat practice. The what in Tibet is called tumo, and what I've written about as inner heat, a gathering of the energies of the etheric body into the central channel, the concentration of them there, and literally the sublimation of the body, the alchemic transformation through heat, and it creates bliss. It is the number one thing that if people come to me and say, I can't see spirits, I can't visualize, I can't dream, I don't have lucid dreams, I can't see anything in the crystal, I'll sit there and shout evocations 7-8 times in a row, and I don't, I can sort of sense a presence, but nothing happens. Inner heat is a big one. Inner heat is the big one that I would recommend to people. Yeah.
I was going to ask you why, and then you turn around and say it's going to help people who can't see spirits, who can't dream. Those are all very good reasons to sell a service. What drives you to keep practicing sorcery?
I'm sorry? What inspired me to keep practicing?
No. What drives you to keep practicing sorcery?
What drives you? Oh, well, I suck at everything else. When I was young, I think I was reading an interview with some band that I liked, and I can't remember what it was. And what's the advice for young magicians? And the advice was, don't have a plan B. If you have a plan B, then chances are at some point you will take the plan B and do that instead of being a musician. Whereas if you don't have a plan B, you've got to make this work. So in a way, I left college after a few years, mostly because no one was there to pay for it for me. And because I was devoting 80% of my time to studying magic, I was not from throughout most of high school. I wasn't earning any scholarships or anything like that. So I left and I, did a variety of things for work, but sorcery is the thing that always drove me. Magic, mysticism, this was the thing that the moment I discovered it, it was like, this is the thing for you. It's not something I would recommend to people at all, unless it was their calling, their drive. If somebody was kind of like, this sorcery thing is interesting, I'm thinking about maybe throwing my hat in the game, I'd say, nah. Don't do that. Like, do it if you feel called and you can't do anything else. That's the truth. That's the only thing that I can tell you that drives me. Obviously I've had some success with it, so I can say, I make a damn fine living at it now, and it's, worked out for me wonderfully, and it has. But if it didn't, I would still be doing it. So, I would just also be holding some other job that I suck at as well. And why would I suck at it? Because while I was there, I would be having email conversations with sorcerers and thinking about magic most of the time.
Your newest book is The Elements of Spellcrafting, and I found it to be quite excellent. In fact, I think it's the perfect companion to your Strategic Sorcery Course. Why did you decide to write that book?
I wrote that book because while I certainly want people to join my courses and things like that, I want people to be better at magic overall. And I want people to do magic that matters, whether they're in my course or somebody else's course, because there's tons of great magic out there. I don't hold it all. Goodness. And most magic works, some better than others, some worse than others. But again, people start aiming it at stupid crap. And they're not thinking strategically about what they want. It's like, someone pisses them off at work. It's like, oh, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do the grand curse of Mephistopheles against them. And it's like, okay, well, why? What's that going to get you? Like, does it remove that person? Does it just make them more miserable, ergo making them more miserable, ergo making your time with them more miserable? Is it actually going to remove them? Are you, let's say the worst happens. Are you really trying to kill this person because they get on your nerves? What happens if that happens? Are you, looking in the mirror at a sociopath? Is that what you're telling me? So, things like that, or yeah, I did this spell to win the lottery and I won $40. Woo! Okay, great. Go out to dinner and then, while you're there, plan something a little more meaningful. So the Elements of Spellcrafting is aimed at anyone who does magic of any kind. And it's there to dispel a lot of ideas that I think are crap, that have made their way into sort of the common wisdom, like the idea that everything has to be do it yourself, or that anything you write yourself works better than not. And the other thing is just to guide people into what I think are best practices. Like, maybe this is why that didn't work. And things are, you've solved all your basic problems in life. Great. Where are you going to go from here? How are you going to build something better than just fixing crap that's broken? One of the great things that has happened over the course of the last 10 years or so that Strategic Sorcery has been running is I have seen people join the course earlier in their career and they're fixing things that are broken. Some of them, really, really fixing things that are broken. Maybe they've had even to join the course, on a scholarship or something, because just, stuff is not working out for them well. And they'll work it and things will get fixed. And then they enter another stage where things get improved. And then they enter a third stage where it's like, wow, life is as I wanted it to be. And now I can start doing extraordinary things that I never thought I would even be able to do. So I've been able to see strategic sorcery helping people with that in whatever small way it has helped people with that, which is very, it's what keeps me, that probably keeps me going more than anything else as a teacher. Field reports from students.
I like that you share those field reports. I think it's nice to see how people are succeeding with the material and actually putting it to work in the world. I'm sure as a teacher, it's wonderful to get that feedback.
It's a great thing to be able to do that. One of the things I really try not to do is to talk about. I really hate when people sell like, join my course and live like me. I get paid overnight while I sleep and I'm in my hot tub making money right now. It's, like this kind of thing. And it's, my life is good and great and all that too. But it's, the person who runs the course is not the one that it has to work for. It has to work for the students. So I've been really blessed with students that have been willing to share their successes and also when things don't go wrong. And it's true. Those, I don't put up on ads like, I had this field report and nothing worked right. But when you're, within the courses, people will tell you, people will throw those up on the group where we discuss things, and they're not only are they welcome, they're encouraged because, well, okay, let's find out. Let's workshop this. Is this within the realm of enchantability? What links did we have that could have made this better? Again, are you trying to push a boulder with your bare hands? Well, what's a better lever? Stuff like that. So I'm really blessed with not only the success stories that I am able to then use to say, look, this course has worked for people and here they are. But also to have people that are, willing to share and help each other. The students, in some of my courses they're, with very few exceptions, they're really just super helpful. And, there are times where I'll chime in on something a couple days later and the problem will already be solved because some of the senior students have been like, hey, have you tried this, take a look at that. So it's a great thing.
And the community you've built is extremely helpful and very supportive in sorcery and the occult. That's not exactly something you always find.
There's a secret. There's a secret to it. I demand that people be polite and constructive.
Yes, you do.
Simple.
Yep.
And if you're not, you're gone. Like you could be a good friend of mine that I know in real life. But if you're there to like make your water taste sweeter by pissing in other people's cups, you're gone. That's it.
Yeah. So basically, folks, go out there and sign up for Jason's Strategic Sorcery Course. I am not only a sorcerer, I am also a client.
I did not mean to answer the question like an ad, but
that's
no.
Well, being that this is also a show about the paranormal, I have a portion of my audience that are mostly paranormal investigators. And something I like to expose them to are the ways that we as magic users think about haunted locations and interacting and investigating spirits. With that said, let's imagine you've got a friend that you trust is telling you the truth. They say, my house is really super fucking haunted. Like, there's water shooting out of my phones. The walls are shaking, like visions, apparitions, you name it, whatever's going on. They need your help. They know you're a sorcerer. How do you help them?
Well, these days, I tell them call Lonnie Scott.
That's not fair.
But you know what? It's interesting though, because for a haunted place or something like that, it would have to be local. I wouldn't there are some things that people, will just take remote work for no matter what it is. I'll do remote cleansings and things like that. And I do a lot of remote spell work for people. But there are also a lot of things where I'm like, you really should have somebody local, to do this. And I'm not local and I'm not flying out. So the first thing would be, if the person you're asking isn't local, find someone local to go and to be there. The next thing that I would do and have done, because I've been in this situation numerous times, is I would go into the place, and there are rituals that I would do to make contact safely with the powers in the house, be they simply disruptive or malevolent, or at times just, themselves in trouble, and determine what the best course of action is. Sometimes it's something so simple, like dedicating a piece of 1 foot square piece on the property to local spirits and then you don't touch it. Like that one little square spot can be, an entire estate for non-physical entities. And I've had that calm a haunting right down, immediately. Now, what happens when they sell the house and then the next person comes along and mows that down? I don't know. But so that can happen. There are ways I've used Kardakian methods to elevate spirits, where you take light and you move it upwards over time as a way to guide spirits out. I've used other rituals where a spirit is elevated through oil and water and wine and calmed and elevated that way. And then there are times where exorcism is needed, where, you're binding something by oath and giving it the old, fuck off now.
I've never heard an exorcism referred to as the old fuck off now.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice summary though.
Yeah. I think there was a Hellblazer comic where, he drew a circle on the floor, and there was a middle finger sticking up out of the circle. It said "fuck off."
We kind of talked about local places of power earlier, and this lends its hand to wider paranormal research as well. The landscape is dotted with these asylums, abandoned places, old hospitals and penitentiaries, and things of that nature that are full of potentially very negative entities, spirits who are just simply trapped in a location. They're often the popular targets of paranormal investigation. But as a magic user, as someone who works with spirits through a reciprocal relationship, what do you view these places as? do you think they should be approached differently with respect? Should they be avoided? Should they just be enjoyed as they are? What do you think?
I guess this is an area where I don't have a very strong opinion, one way or the other. I've been to haunted places like this. There was one that sticks out in my mind. The locals called it Iron City, and it was an old abandoned Nike Air Force base with a lot of underground and we saw weird shit and disturbing stuff, and I don't know. My microphone fell. I don't know what went on there to cause that. But in the end, I guess it's different interests. I as a magician, what are you going to do in a penitentiary? Exercise everything? Set it off. And even if you do, you can't exercise the echoes of something. So there will always be paranormal researchers and guests and things like that looking for the thrill of a haunting or something, seeking there. And that, in a way, reinforces and feeds those manifestations to a certain degree as well. There are some ways that the paranormal investigator and the magician mix well, and then there are some ways that they don't mix well. So I think that the paranormal investigator who has a client, like a homeowner or something, that is being disturbed is served well by a magician or a magic user that knows what they're doing, is able to exercise, is able to banish and protect. But in the sense of we're going to go to this haunted place, the magic user is able to offer protection for the people that go on the investigation. But I've never seen the purpose of it. I've never seen the data that makes it important. I've never seen the I don't know. It's not my calling, so I don't want to poop on somebody else's thing. But it's definitely not my hobby. And I think sometimes people are surprised at how little overlap there is between the paranormal interest and the occult interests.
Yeah, there are places it does intersect, and you're right. There's also quite a few that it does not.
Well, there's also some animosity. I know I've been on some shows that are paranormal shows. They're like primarily paranormal conspiracy shows and not magic or occult shows. And they get me on, and it's sort of like, if they're paranormal researchers, then I'm the occultist in their mind who dabbles and creates these demonically haunted places that they bravely must go in and face. So I'm sort of like the enemy, like the Cthulhu cultist or something in there. And their knowledge of what real occultists do is limited to whatever feeds the narrative. And then the conspiracy people, the magicians and the cultists are feeding whatever the conspiracy is of, the Illuminati and so on.
Oh no,
and so forth.
not those guys.
So I'm always like, okay, well, that's not really how it works,
Yeah.
but whatever.
Fair enough. And it's nice to hear, like I said, it's nice to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on how they would approach a haunting and haunted locations, especially from a magic using mindset, because we do look at these places differently.
We do. And the other thing I said before how paranormal researchers can take advantage of occultists in terms of protection and exorcism and things like that. But the opposite is also true. The occultists who are performing evocations should be disturbing reality enough that they're getting audible and visual manifestations. And so some of those can be picked up by equipment that paranormal researchers use. So it would be interesting to have paranormal researchers at an evocation, for instance.
Oh, sure. You want to do an interesting experiment sometime, get one of the small K2 meters, measures the electromagnetic field or what have you. It's supposed to show spikes in that activity, and then it's often associated with potential spirit activity. Place one near you when you're doing your spirit feast, making your daily offerings, and see if it lights up. What advice would you give to someone who wants to explore or begin to get into magic, somebody that has no experience at all? And what advice do you think they should ignore?
The advice that I would give to somebody, the very first thing I would say is, do you really want to do this? Like why? Why would you want to do something is time intensive and wackadoodle and just not most likely not going to be looked on kindly by the rest of the world. Why do you want to do that? Because, life is hard as it is. We've got the time that we're spending at work and the time that we're spending with friends and family and the time that we're sleeping. And then you're going to throw magic into that? Like, can I talk you out of it, please? This is the first thing I would say. It would be like, take a look at this. Like, do you really want to do it? The next thing that I would say is, if the answer to that is yes, I really feel called to this, grab a book and try a spell. Grab a book, try a spell right away. A cheesy looking spell book is just fine. A spell kit is just fine. Somebody else's technique, so you don't have to worry about, learning every last little thing. Take something and try it out. Grab one book and don't go to the next book until you have tried something from that friggin' book. Because what happens right now is there's two reasons for this, really. The first is that you'll get the bug. It'll be real for you. Whether you succeed or not, if you have any gift at all for it, you'll feel something. You'll move stuff. And you'll get that, I can do this. I didn't learn to play guitar the traditional way either. Somebody said, go buy a guitar, and they taught me G and A. That's all they taught me. And they said, go home and practice G and A over and over and over again, and just keep keep going, G, G, A. And then you can play Jane Says, and I did. And I played it on stage the next week. And then I learned more chords and became the crappy guitar player that I am today. But it gave me that I can play a song as opposed to, well, first we're going to learn all these notes and scales and riffs and, maybe at the end of several months you will be able to play a song. Nope, jump right in, do a spell right away, right now. Get in. And the other thing is it places knowledge in the right context, because at the moment, people can become paralyzed. There is so much out there to read. The people that taught me had so little to read that was available for them. They had to run with what they had and build upon it using magical experience. And then they started writing books, and these are the books that I consumed. And there was plenty of it for me to learn. But I still, the internet wasn't around. So your local mall bookstore, we didn't even have big honking, Barnes and Noble bookstores. We just had the local mall bookstore. And in fact, my first column for a magazine was called Tips for the Mall Bookstore Magician. And I used to go and, get it, practice, get another book, practice, and throw yourself in. But now there is so much out there that somebody can spend their entire career never doing anything, because by the time they have finished one book, 3 more very good, very interesting books have been released. And at some point you have to say, okay, I don't need to know about that right now. I need to get doing something. And as for the advice I would not follow, oh goodness, there's so much. There's so much bad advice out there. The big one is especially for beginners, the do-it-yourself mentality. It's good in some ways, but bad in others. And the idea that anything you write for yourself or think of yourself or make yourself is better de facto than what somebody else has done is a pernicious and ridiculous piece of advice that gets repeated over and over and over again. And I mean, can you think of any other field where that is the case? I mean, not just in technology, which obviously is ridiculous. Like the computer you build is going to be better than the computer that Dell builds. Of course it's not. That's asinine. If you know how to build one, then sure. But that takes a certain amount of knowledge. If I master blade making, then yeah, sure. Then the athame I make is better than the athame I can buy. But it takes years to master blade making. So how many things are you really going to master? So that would be a piece of advice that I think is, garbage.
Excellent advice. Especially on it's amazing. And I've been at this for 25, 26 years now, and I've seen limited access, like you said, in a little mall bookstore, go to the explosion of what it is now. You could literally, like you said, you could be paralyzed by all the options that are there and end up not doing anything. So yeah, definitely get out there and do something, anything. I'm not sure I would start with a spell kit, but why not? We've come to the end of the standard show, and we've covered quite a lot of ground here. I'm just curious if there's something that I should have asked or something that you would like to cover or address with the audience. What would it be?
No, just get out there and get your hands dirty.
Agreed. Get out there and get your hands dirty, folks. I want to thank you again, Jason, for being here. Where can everyone find you?
Look for me at strategicsorcery.net, and you can grab my books wherever books are sold. But if you Google Strategic Sorcery or you go to strategicsorcery.net, you will find me, my blog, links to my Facebook, and everything else.
Okay. And for everyone out there, thank you again for being here and always supporting the show. If you want to hear the bonus questions we're going to cover, you know where to go. Stay weird out there, my friends.
Okay, gang, that's a wrap on this episode of Weird Web Radio. Once again, thank you all for listening. Now, it's time for you to go join the official Weird Web Radio membership. Go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio and you can choose your rewards and become a member today. Enjoy all the exclusive benefits, inside information, and plenty of bonus audio with each guest. Now, you can find the show at weirdwebradio.com and weirdwebradio.libsyn.com. The show is listed on Facebook and Twitter as Weird Web Radio, and you can find me on Instagram as just Lonnie_Scott. Please remember to rate and comment and share the shows that you like, and it helps others find us in all the search results. Shoot me an email if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you know someone that would be a great guest in upcoming episodes. You can send that to weirdwebradio@gmail.com. Seek the mysteries and delights in life, my friends. As always, stay weird out there.